Welcome to the Kawartha Small Business Podcast, where we believe the Kawarthas can be the most thriving region in Canada for small businesses. I'm Brian Rump from Profit Coach.
And I'm Matt Geraghty from Matty G Digital.
And we are recording from the Thrive Podcast Studio at Thrive Co-working Community, downtown Lindsay, Ontario at 18 Kent Street West. All right, today we have with us in the studio Sheila and Tim from British Empire Fuels, so welcome. And we'll get you to introduce yourselves and British Empire Fuels.
Okay, my name's Sheila White. I married into the family that owned British Empire Fuels. So the company was purchased by the White family in 1981. Originally a coal company in Toronto, and changed to oil, migrated to Bobcaygeon, and then my father-in-law decided it was a good idea to buy that up. So that launched us into oil delivery only, and then over time, Robert, their son, and Greg came back into the fold, and that increased us to do service and installations. Our deliveries grew multiple, and so here we sit today. And then in about 2014, we purchased a service company in Lindsay, and we amalgamated that into British Empire Fuels, which opened our Lindsay branch. So long history, and lots of the same stuff every year.
How many years is it now then?
1981, so we're going into 60 years this year for our anniversary. Yeah.
You said 1981, and I was like, that wasn't that long ago. It was like 20 years ago. It was like 6 years ago. Meg the other day said, so there was something on the screen about 2014. She's like, oh, that was so long. I'm like, what are you talking about? That was like 2 or 3 years ago. I know that was 10 years ago. That's how old I feel now.
Yeah, it's a lot. Time goes by fast. I love that you started with coal.
Yes.
As like part of the history, and it's a good reminder that things change. And my dad talks about his mother teaching him about how coal was the safest way to heat your house, and this miraculous thing. And now, I remember being in houses that like used to have coal chutes, and every now and then you'd find a piece of coal in like an old basement. But I don't ever remember being in a house heated by coal, and just things change.
Yeah, well, definitely the parents of the people that moved it and changed it to oil thought they were crazy. That this was an insane move at the time.
You're going to ruin the whole business
completely
by getting into oil.
Yeah. So, but obviously that didn't happen. So we came through the 80s and the energy crisis there, and everybody was going to go electric, and then it got back to oil, and then propane hit the scene, and that took us into a new level. So yeah, very fortunate. Again, a thought of my father-in-law's. Thought it was a good idea, and it turned out to be. Yeah.
What did everybody else in the business think at that point?
We were pretty much the business as far as Rob and Greg and us in it. So we weren't thrilled because we had to man this filling station every Saturday. But again, if he hadn't have done that and we had stuck with just oil, we probably wouldn't be here today. So I often refer to him as a visionary on some levels, because at the time we thought he was crazy, but clearly it was a good decision. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you think, have there been other moments like that where you look back and think, oh, if we didn't do that, we might have...
many. Gosh, many. Those are probably standout. Jettisoning forward, if we hadn't found Tim, that could have been disastrous. There's just so many things. There's a lot to decide because you're growing and you don't even realize you're growing. So you're so immersed in trying to look after customers, look after getting more space, more buildings, more people, more trucks, more whatever you need. It's almost overwhelming. So, when you look back on it that way, I can't believe I'm still upright and sane. No, it is a lot of change, and a lot of rapid change.
Yeah, it moves so fast, and you're in it and busy, and then you look back and realize the big changes that you made, and maybe decisions that maybe seemed overwhelming or scary. Now it's like, oh, I'm glad I did that. Like Tim, tell us about you and your role and how you came to.
What a great segue to the Savior Tim.
Yes.
Not a savior, not you got some of the staff.
Yeah.
No, you know what? I came to British in 2016. The previous 30 years were working in the GTA for various companies, mostly in the trucking and distribution industry, service industry. So I had various management positions throughout those companies. Got great exposure, great training, and actually it was a fluke that I came across the advertisement for British Empire Fuels for an ops manager. I was actually looking for a job for my daughter. Recently graduated college and needed to get out of my house, and I came across an ad in the paper of all places, right? And when I read the article, I laughed. I'm like, "That's me, right?" The advertisement. Could put it off to the side. Next day, I dug the paper out of the bin and I reread it again, and I thought, well, Bobcaygeon is a nice place, right? And it's certainly going to be better traffic than driving into Toronto every day. And so I threw a resume in, and lo and behold, I got a call from Rob. And after several discussions, I decided to give up a career of 25 years in senior management and move up to Bobcaygeon. And it's been a fantastic move, right? Along with just the traffic. Right there, I added 10 years to my life easily, right? But great clientele, great company to work for. It's a family-owned business still. We're big, but Rob and Greg and Sheila are still very active in the business, and and it's like I said, you're working in cottage country. Like, it's beautiful up there. We got deer walking through the yard, or turkeys, and and I'm not talking about staff. I'm talking about actual wildlife, right? Like fantastic. It is nice. And then we've had a lot of projects in the last couple of years that have made it even more exciting. We just embarked on a $1.5 million expansion of our propane plant. What Sheila mentioned about the visionary. I mean, when they originally put in the 18,000 gallon tank, they thought that was more than enough fuel. And when we saw that monstrous 60,000 gallon tank show up last winter, we thought, oh boy, like that's way too much storage. We'll never use it all. We've run that plant dry way too many times. We've moved so much fuel through it. So it's been exciting. It's never been, and then of course we had a pandemic in there, and we had the ultimate winter freeze of all time in 2018. So it's not been boring at all.
Yeah, I get so excited by that change. And we were talking offline about how, in my previous career, I had a professional knowledge of British Empire Fuels when I was a banker. And that would have been, I was in commercial 2010 to 2013. And even a few years before that, I was in the Fenland branch, and, Fenland, Bobcaygeon, things were similar. And I was learning a lot about commercial banking, so I started following different businesses, and British Empire's one, and you could contrast that with some of your competitors who we also kind of dealt with at the time. So when I left, it was like one of those businesses you kind of follow from afar, and especially since 2016 and how you've progressed has just been very impressive in just that type of industry, because it's not easy to run a business like that. Yet having the vision, everyone still heats their house and cools their house, and people want great service. So if you can get the operations and logistics right, there's lots of business out there.
Absolutely. It's even changing still. I mean, on the latest front is heat pumps, right? We're heating electricity, and that's been a lot of business for us, which you'd think would be counterintuitive to a fuel company. But, really the vision that drew me to the company was the customer, right? They're a local family in a local town looking after local people. And, we're doing what's right for the customers, not necessarily what's right for the business, right? And, that's totally bizarre. Right?
Yeah, I think it's bizarre, but it's, in some ways, but I love it. Matt and I talk all the time. I personally have this core belief that people at the end of the day want to deal with their local guide for their business. So when I want fuel heating my house, I want someone who's reasonably close to kind of show up and help guide me through that process. Not necessarily someone dispatched from, the GTA or a call center or who knows where. And you're taking care of what they want, which is heating and cooling their house. And with the limited knowledge I have, I know with heat pumps, you also want something else. So if you can be here's your heat pump and your propane, whatever, then you get to be the person who takes care of that system. And that's being the local guide.
Talk to me about these heat pumps, just for curiosity, explaining to people that might be listening, wondering what a heat pump is. So it's fueled, like it's charged with electricity.
Yep.
And how's it different than a baseboard heater?
So in its simplest form, a heat pump is an air conditioner that runs backwards. Right? So in the summertime, an air conditioner draws the heat out of your house and expels it outside. And then come wintertime, it reverses. It now takes warmth out of the air, which even at minus 20, there's still some warmth in that air, and now dumps it into your house. So it's using electricity, exact same fashion as an air conditioner, and it's now heating your house. Most times up to about minus 20 degrees Celsius. After minus 20 degrees, you definitely need an alternate heat source because it's not that great, and we do get some cold winters here still, and so a backup heat source, doesn't matter what it is always a great plan anyway, right? But yeah, that's how a heat pump basically is. It's, and it can be ground source, so it gets this, warmth out of the ground. It can be air source, getting it out of the air. They're using water source heat pumps now, so they're drawing warmth out of the water. So the technology is still evolving. It's come a long way, even in the last 5 years. And the government is definitely throwing a lot of rebates out. There's nothing currently, but they will be again to convert people over to that electric source.
And why do people want that source? Is it because they don't have to pay for regular fuel? Or is it trendy or cost, or what is it?
For me, I have 3 different types of heat source in my house. I lived through the power blackout in 2003, and then we've, living in the country, we have lots of blackouts. So, heat is kind of important in the wintertime, and you can rely on, a forced air furnace, relies on electricity. You can rely on a heat pump, which relies on electricity, or you can go to a combustible fire, which is not always relying on electricity. A fan might be there, but so I have all of it, right? I think heat pumps are definitely trendy, and the government rebates have helped. The government is driving the push to electricity, and so they're throwing lots of money out there, and people are jumping on board. I'm just as guilty. Rebate comes out, I'm putting in a heat pump system because, I can heat my house for a little bit less, right? So the upfront system cost is less, right? Obviously, your hydro bill goes up. Your gas bill goes down. Whether it equates or not, we're still working on that, right? I haven't saved any money per se for me, right? But I have an additional heat source in my house which I can rely on, right?
Sure.
So it's peace of mind. For me, that's huge.
What would be, I'm just now curious, from some of the biggest changes in the business from when you started to now? I just think back to... I lived in Fenland Falls and had a propane fireplace, and I just remember you get the propane delivery and they'd leave a bill in your kind of tucked into your door, and if it blew away and you missed it, then they might even be mad at you, or the company I dealt with, they wouldn't even tell you. They'd just be, you might get a collection letter. And I'm like, someone maybe could have called me, like I would have. And I don't know that happens anymore. Just the nature of the industry and people adopting things. So what are some of the biggest kind of changes you've noticed?
Well, it depends on the company, right? Some companies still have the old-fashioned printed tickets, and they still leave them in the door to blow away, right? I'm happy that the Whites have been very adoptive of change. There was a few changes we've implemented, and the first one was going to a new electronic system. So, where we had the old paper tickets that blew away, now our trucks are equipped with tablets. And so a customer will receive a notification that we've delivered fuel to their location via email immediately as soon as the delivery is done. And then the invoices go electronic, and that's what folks were asking for, right? Canada Post continues to rise in cost, and so in order to be a competitive business in the area, we had to reduce our costs. Well, the $2 stamp is expensive. Times that by 6,000 customers multiple times a year.
Yeah.
So by going electronic, we were able to save some money and then reduce our overall cost to the customer. In terms of the HVAC side, we're constantly improving efficiencies, right? Furnaces were around 95% when I started. They're up around 99% efficient now. So even in that short, 6-year span, 7-year span, it's nice to see all that equipment constantly changing. Sometimes for the better, sometimes not so much, right? There's a lot of electronic components. Makes it definitely more difficult to diagnose. A little more susceptible to irregular power voltage, which we tend to have up here in the country, right? So, the old 30-year-old furnaces continue to run and chug along, and we get a good windstorm now and power surges, and we do see some failures because, the new equipment can't necessarily take irregular voltage. And interesting to see. Right? So, most change is good, some is not so good.
Do you have any ideas? Or
things that have changed massively over?
Because I have a couple. I'm trying to push myself to give an answer also. But yeah.
Oh, jeez. Everything's changed as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
I mean, I started in that office after our second son was 4 because apparently I was useless at that point. So it was time to go to real work. So my God, there's been constant change, if I really reflect on it, because if you want to go right back to the root, when we used to do tickets and deliveries, we maybe had 500 customers. We had a plastic recipe box with cards in it with their name on it, and we would manually write the day of the delivery, the literage, and the invoices were handwritten and sent out. So yeah, I've seen massive change to the point where we are with our electronics and our delivery system now. It was all manually calculated and figured out, and now with all the computer and technology, we can set a person up, tweak it right to perfection almost as when they need their delivery on time. So I could fill 5 podcasts with the changes that I've seen that are crazy in my head.
I just love that so much as just a case study, and I also teach at Fleming College, and when we look at operations, the core of the business is the same. You're still heating, delivering fuel, but all of the how you go, when you go, how you bill, when you get the cash, and knowing just some of the mechanics, that makes a massive difference, because you got to buy the propane and you got to distribute it and get paid for it, and it's huge dollars that are flowing around, and you get to keep a tiny little piece of that. So all of these little savings make a big difference and allow you to grow for what's still kind of the same classic business, but everything about it has changed, and I just get excited and nerd out on stuff like that.
I was thinking of changes from when we started working together, 4 years ago. And I think it's not change, but it's actually openness, which I think is one of the reasons I think that you've been successful, is always an openness through conversations of working with me and understanding and respecting. And I talk to you about something and you guys are always open to it. And 2 things come to mind, one of which is when we first started talking about smaller products or services like fireplace installation or fireplace repair, and barbecue lines and outdoor fireplaces and stuff. And the conversation was those are always just secondary, accessory things that salespeople just kind of throw out there in conversation. And we're well, why don't we start promoting those and bringing people to the website for that? And I've always been excited about that, those little extra things that we've thrown on the website, and massive amounts of pages for that. So
our duct cleaning was our shiny thing.
Duct cleaning, yes, absolutely. And then the other one, and this isn't patting myself on the back, but Tim's told this story, so I'm going to steal Tim's story. But the idea that you were always so open to a massive dramatic shift of thinking of you guys wanted to sell the box in the basement or the box outside that provides heat or cooling, right? And I was like, nobody cares what the box in the basement looks like. Nobody knows what's there other than you guys. And contractors and technicians like geek out about pipes and wires and boxes and all this stuff. But the average person doesn't care. And I told you the story of years ago, before I knew you, I had a price or a proposal for a furnace. There's 3 different furnaces and there's like pages of numbers. And I called the guy, I'm like, what does this mean?
Yeah.
I just want to know, like, is this going to work? And like, I asked him a couple questions. I'm like, I'm just going to go with the medium one. I'm not going to spend the most, I'm not going to spend the least. And you were always open to like, let's not focus on like the details of the box in the basement. Let's talk about like, what is it that people are actually calling us for? And, like, they have a problem, they're hot or they're cold, and we need to fix that.
That's not, I can't take credit for that one. You know, when I joined the company, I met with all the vendor reps to, you know, jump right in. I wanted to learn all the fancy numbers and, you know, learn the whole business, you know, infinitely well. And then I came across this one rep, Dan Fraser, and Dan was the one that said, you know, it's a box that makes heat. Let's just get that clear, right? And it totally took me off guard because, you know, here we have a salesman who's trying to sell his wares, and yet he's telling me just ignore it, right? You know, it's you that they're calling in a hurry when they need something.
Yeah.
And so he ran us through that little study, and he said, you know, out of all the people they did a study actually. They said they polled how many thousands of people. And they wanted to know how many people knew what kind of furnace they had in their basement, and like 90% of the people couldn't tell you, right? And so they said, what color was it? And they still didn't know, right? And so then they had customers take a guess, and their best guess was Honeywell, which was the name of the thermostat. So, so then he went on to explain, you know, the rationale behind the HVAC business. And he said most times where people go wrong is that they're so focused on the brand and the numbers, and yet they forget about the poor customer who just wants to be warm or they want to be cool, right?
Yeah.
And it was such great way to put it out there, right? So instead of being the HVAC guy, how about we're the emergency guy?
Yeah.
When you need us, we're there, right? You know, and we're there quickly, and we're there to help you get out of that problem. We got all kinds of different vendor lines to offer you, and lots of numbers. We can do up a quote with 6 pages of numbers if you really want that information, but ultimately, if you want to get home comfort, that's what we're going to look after. And then we're going to be there afterward. That's the biggest thing for us.
And that's what I love about being that local guide who, you know, people can trust to get the right box, maintain that box, and be there when it breaks. And that is more important than, you know, what the numbers are. I think of something like duct cleaning, where, you know, everyone gets the telemarketer calls, and most people realize, like, oh, maybe I do need my ducts cleaned, but do I want some random person who happens to be in the area that day crawling through my house? No. Do I want the people I trust that maybe I didn't know they did duct cleaning before, but I'll let them come into my house and clean my ducts? And you're just providing just great service for things that people want to have.
Yeah. It's, you know, the HVAC industry, duct cleaning industry, there's several industries that get bad names, you know, courtesy of news reporting and true characters out there that are not
Marketing.
You know, that are not, you know, proper in their business practices. And you know, so we want to change that mentality, right? You know, again, if there's a problem, we're local. Come into our door. You know, we're always there. You know, we have great relationships with our customers. That's the biggest thing, right? You know, we support the local community with, you know, all the parades, the fairs, everything that we're involved with. And, you know, and our staff all live here. They all go to the local stores, and they all want to have a positive experience when they bump into that customer. Not, you know, you're a scammer. That's not, you know, that's not the experience we're looking for. So, you know, it's different.
The other reason why I think you've been so successful is because you put people in roles that make sense. And that's something we've always talked about on this podcast specifically, but the idea of Tim or you don't need to do everything. You don't need to be sales, you don't need to be marketing, you don't need to be HR. And it makes sense at first when you're starting, those first couple of years, but that's why I think you're so successful now. One of the reasons is you got Tim that does what he does, Sheila that does what she does, and everyone's in their neat little piles. When did you, I don't know if that was something you recognized as important. If it was, when did that start?
Before Tim, brother Greg and Rob and I, we all realized that it was important. We didn't have the, I guess, how do I say it? We didn't really have the experience or some knowledge on just how to implement it or what to do. So we did try different things. We had, Lisa was office manager, Lisa was install manager. She's been many roles in our world, but so we did know it should be, and we did attempt it, but not very successfully in my own eyes. So that was something that when Tim did get in with us, that was clearly needed to be done. So, and it's still taking time to do. It's always a work in progress, but definitely we're finally, I think, getting some of the right people in the right places. And again, we knew that had to be, but we just couldn't facilitate it back when we were knee deep in everything.
Yeah.
And you just kind of did what you had to do to get through the day.
Are you having a hard time finding people or the right people to put in those spots, or how's hiring been?
Hiring is easy. Everybody says it's hard.
Yeah.
It's easy. Here's my philosophy on it. I don't look for somebody who knows all the answers. I'm looking for somebody who's got a good heart and a willingness to learn. Right? Those are the two key foundational skills they need. Because if they got a good heart, they're going to look after our customers. And if they're willing to learn, we can teach them everything they need to know. I came in this industry with management experience, but no knowledge of HVAC. In my brain, I was thinking, okay, there's going to be a couple trucks and a couple vans, and yet this place was bustling with people, and they all had a great heart, which was good. Now, the other thing is, we got so many people that are there and they're happy. We've got people pounding down our door to come work for us, and it's hard. I gotta say, no, sorry, we just don't have a vacancy, right? So no, we really don't have a hard time hiring people.
I love that, and I'm just gonna shout out some Maddie G Digital and the concept of marketing, because right now in Fleming I'm teaching in the supply chain management program. I'm teaching a course called Field Integration, and it's a lot about finding jobs. And I talk to a lot of employers, and so many people say, can't find anyone. Nobody wants to work. Yet in the last month, you're the fourth person who has talked about people beating down the door or just showing up. And all of those people work with Matt and do marketing. So when you do marketing, it's about getting customers, but it's also about building a brand, being who you are. And the spin-off effect is you also get good people either approach you to want to work there, or they see your ads and want to apply, and you just find the right people. And I think that's another benefit. I didn't tell you about this story. I didn't know this story.
This is great. Yeah.
But two other people talked about. One was like, oh, this person just randomly called me and said they really wanted to work here. I'm like, there was nothing random about them finding you, understanding who you were and choosing. They were relocating and needed a job in a field they wanted to work in. And I'm like, that's marketing is where you found it. Another one, it was like a casual, someone was like kind of hoping that they could get in, and really that the person was like, that's exactly who I wanted to hire. And it all came about because of good quality, consistent marketing and building that business that's, focused on clients and telling people about it. And I just think that's great to duly note, because it's the easy thing is to just talk about how no one wants to work and it's hard to find people. But when you are finding people and building that culture, like that's just a sign of running a good business.
Duly noted.
Yes.
When did you start putting an emphasis on marketing?
Well, we always did stuff. Again, Lisa was doing that back in the day. She worked in newspaper back then, so she did a lot of our paper ads. But it was all local, like Bobcaygeon Independent and the Fenland Gazette, and they were all their local independent publications. So, but again, the customer base was different. Everybody read that paper, and everybody wanted to read that paper because it was all about the community and what was going on. So it was kind of no-brainer marketing back then. You put your Christmas greetings out. I looked through all our archive stuff, and yeah, Christmas greetings, just simple Christmas greetings. I hope everybody has a nice Christmas. And so marketing is completely different from then because I think the consumer expects different things, and just a generational change. I mean, I'm talking back again, 80s and stuff when we were getting into it and plugging along. So it's all changed. I think it's all relative as far as technology goes. But yeah, we've always marketed. We just realized that pandemic time that we either or get off the pot kind of thing. It's like, are we going to do this or not? So when we, talked with you and we discussed it, yeah, we could have said, no, it's a bad time, there's no money, whatever. But it was a good time. It was the right time. So that was what we chose to do. So marketing's always been part of our past, but it's just a different audience now. It's my take.
It was a very good time. I don't know if I've told you this story. I think I may have alluded to it, but it was a good time for me that you started working with me, and I've never thanked you because at that point, the week of the pandemic, I lost half my business in 48 hours, I think it was, 24 hours, just gone. And I talked to you like the week before. I remember I really hope this still goes the way it's supposed to. And I remember, I think I called you or we had a phone call. And you're like, yeah, we're still going to keep going. And you maybe saved my business, in all honesty. And I've never thanked you for that. And it's something I've always thought of, kept that in my heart. And it's everyone I work with is important, but this has always been an important account for me because of that, frankly. Not just because of that, but to me, I always think back on that time, this could have been it for me. And I was like, you guys stuck with me to start. And I was like, this is great. And got me through a really tough time at the beginning of that pandemic. So thank you.
Well, I just knew because we were looking, we knew we had to go that direction. And I mean, you think that maybe you can do it on your own. Bad idea. So once you get looking and reading, and whatever we knew together, and I just thought, oh my gosh, we're never ever going to get a handle on any of this. So, so yeah, it was time to get somebody who knew what they were doing.
That really is a success.
It is.
For us, it's just understanding you're dumb, right? And you need good people to look after things, right? And I think that that's really my biggest success is that we got great people that can do a great job. And I just know enough not to get involved, right? And so when it came to marketing, I don't have any experience, and we needed help, external help.
That's so wise, and I just love this because it's almost like the tale as old as time. When people recognize that and they get the right people, it works. And yet, Matt and I talk to people every day who they kind of want to do it all themselves on top of everything else that they're doing. And the specific stuff that, Matt does, sometimes it just looks easy if it's done right. But to actually execute it and do it right is a skill set that, you could equate it to putting that box of in your basement. It seems easy. Seems like I could do it myself. But it's something you definitely do not want to try to do on your own.
Yeah, and you were joking that you said, you're dumb, but that's extremely smart to recognize that because we all the time, because I think it's people will fail because of ego.
Yes.
And I have an ego. I think every business owner has an ego. We all, even if you're not a business owner, have an ego. But I think people let that get in their way of, I want to do it. I have to do it. I have to do all these things, and that's when it failed. Like, I don't know anything about HR, I don't know anything about finance, or I still don't even know what I'm doing with a business, right? I need coaches and help with that. So like, we need these other people that can pull these things. And Brian was the one who introduced me to the concept of who, not how, where anytime we have a problem, we instinctively think about how we fix it, but we should be thinking who can fix it. And I picked that notion up like 2 or 3 years ago, and that's been a massive change for the better of my business. And you guys figured that out long before me, which is good. You mentioned family business. Why is that so important, do you think?
Well, I grew up in a family business. I mean, several of them, right? And, you know, I've also seen businesses get big and turn to a corporate level, right? You know, for me, it's always been about customer, right? You know, I read a phrase once sitting in a Ford dealership about Henry Ford, right? They're always flashing his sayings up there. And, you know, one of the statements about, you know, being devoted to customer service, you know, the only problem with the bottom line you're going to have is that it's embarrassingly large. That stuck with me, right? You know, but he's right. You know, if you look after the customers, and I'm a customer, every day I'm a customer. I'm buying things from somebody, and I like to get value for my money, and I like to have a good experience. And so for me, that's always been what family businesses do best, is they drive that customer experience. Whereas large corporations tend to forget about that customer. They're so focused on that bottom line that they forget about you know, the real people, because we're all real people. We all put our pants on in the morning the same way. And it doesn't matter whether it's, you know, the largest telecommunications company out there or just a small local company. We all want to feel special. We all want to feel valued, right? And big corporations lose that, right? You know, so that's something I've always had. Family's important, and being treated with respect is important. And you can't find that in a large, where you're a number corporation. It just wasn't my thing.
Yeah.
You know, I liked the personal feeling versus the growth potential of my career that was going to kill me driving in Toronto.
Yeah, I love that. I fully agree with that. I call it like the spreadsheet managers who get into big corporations and they kind of whittle away everything, and then they get surprised when the business disappears, because you can, you know, kind of cut and focus on just the short term and then never actually have any vision for the future. But when you have that core value of just serving customers, providing a good experience, knowing that everyone's humans working together, and you just get that more in a family business.
My last question, I feel like it might be a tough one, but why do you think that you will be more successful than the one-man trucks that we're seeing more and more driving around town all the time that we talk about?
Well, you know, I'll let Sheila answer part of that question too. We've been around for 60 years, right? You know, and we all as humans hate change, right? And so when you get something done in your house, and it's going to inevitably fail. You know, we have a local appliance store here in town. I've bought all my appliances from them for years. They're going to fail, and they're there to help us out.
Yeah.
Right? You know, if I go into a big box store and I'm buying that same appliance, right? You know, I don't have the one-man shops, particularly in the HVAC industry, they're gone tomorrow.
Yeah.
You know, it's a flash in the pan. They'll sell you a furnace today, and when that thing breaks and you need them, they're not there. You know, we also have a great team supporting us, right? So, you know, when you're a one-man van, if you don't know it, you're kind of out of luck, and you're going to fake it till you make it. Not always the best thing when it comes to natural gas and propane. We have a large team of technicians with a wide variety of experience, and you know, somewhere in that mix, we will have the answer, and so it's done right. And so there's a few different reasons for that, right? But you know, there's a huge cost associated with having a large team, you know, and that's tough. You know, some days I wish we could have one van and only pay to fix one van, but you know, it's just not. That's not what this community needs.
have a lot to add to that, really. I mean, I think the one-man guys, well, even in our experience, we've had several employees leave to do their own thing. And I guess if I had to split it, there's probably a 50-50 of those who succeeded and those who failed. So I think the ones who failed, they thought, obviously, maybe we made it look easy, I guess. So they figured they could go out and do the same thing and make more money at it. But unfortunately, they don't. They don't do the right things. Like, it's always a bee up our bonnet about the guys that maybe aren't licensed properly. They're out there doing things in people's home unsafely. They're not vetted by insurance. There's a lot of them out there that, sure, they're making a living and they can install a box that makes heat, but sometimes we get that call because it's gone disastrously south and they're not available to come back. So I think that's where we succeed, is because we stand behind what we're doing, and we'll be there. If that guy wrecks yours, we'll come and help you fix that. We have no problem coming and helping fix them. In fact, it makes us feel good because we know that, well, it's bad because they're doing poor workmanship, but we're happy to come in and make that better. So they're always going to be out there. I think it's an easy training course, I think, overall, and it's, to me, sometimes I joke that when people retrain for jobs, I sometimes felt like that's the place they went, was HVAC.
Because it was always on those commercials, right? Where you like train for this is like HVAC or air conditioner repair technician.
So so it's a challenge, but those guys are always going to be out there. But obviously, we've been here for 60 years, so good luck to them.
That sounds like a great place to end. Thank you very much for joining us today. How do people find you?
They can catch us on the web, right?
Yeah.
We try to make it easy. BritishEmpireFuels.com. Matt done a great job of SEO, so we appear on page 1, for any of your needs. You can text us, you can call us, you can come visit us in either of our offices. We got one in Lindsay and one in Bobcaygeon. We're always doors open, welcoming everybody. So we try to make it very easy to find us.
Awesome. I love that. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
And that's our show. Matt, what do you want the people to know, and where can they find you?
I want them to go to mattygdigital.com and book a call.
Awesome. And I want them to go to profitcoach.ca and book a call with me. If you'd like to be on the podcast, please reach out to us, and we can make that happen at Set It Up at kawarthasmallbusinesspodcast.ca.